Hey guys, good morning. It's Naya Calderon. I am coming live on behalf of NWC Counseling. I am a mental health counselor and I work with individuals on how to manage day-to-day stressors or symptoms that they have that relate to emotional health. And I also help companies with doing trainings and speaking events and all kinds of good stuff and related to how to deal with people. And so today I'm actually hopping on live and I wanted to do a Q&A session. You know, usually on Thursdays we have a series that we talked about, but for some reason this month is super long and I didn't have a fifth edition to my May series, which is all about moms. So if you missed that series, you can head back and watch some of those videos to get caught up. Otherwise, today I'm actually going to slide in a Q&A. And the title of the Q&A that I want to talk about today is a question that I think I've been asked like multiple times from like in the last 2 months maybe. I've heard this same type of question. It's been phrased differently, but still people are asking the same thing. And so I wanted to kind of address it really quick from a mental health component and from a side that like giving real feedback that I would tell someone. So if you're listening to this either live or in the replay and you're like, wow, you know what, that kind of sounds like I'm in that same boat, maybe this might be helpful for your situation. So the question that I get asked a lot in therapy is with young women, and they'll say to me, Naya, I'm in this relationship. It's extremely unhealthy. There's either been infidelity, maybe he's emotionally abusive, and they're like, but I don't understand why I keep staying with this person. Like, I don't understand why I keep coming back to him. And I know for a lot of people, if you have not been in a situation where you've been in a relationship that's toxic but addictive, it's hard to understand that. And a lot of times when we're thinking about relationships involving CDV or domestic violent cases, it's hard for certain people to understand why a woman would continue that cycle because they're like, well, if someone treats you bad, you would leave. But it's a whole nother level of a whole nother layer when it comes to love and relationships. And a lot of times we have made stupid decisions in the heat of love or in the heat of being attracted to someone or the idea of something that someone brings. And so what I usually like to share with people that feel guilty or have a lot of shame or are really worried about being in a relationship that's unhealthy is I explain to them, one, how you experience love is how you experience love. Like, no one can tell you like what is right, what is wrong as far as who you love, who you're attracted to. Same thing. Like, no one can tell you who you can or cannot be attracted to. However, what happens is that sometimes and a lot of my clients, I'll just put it out there, and a lot of my clients, a lot of them have an ideal and have an image of the relationship. So what I tell people is when you're in a relationship with someone and they're mistreating you, sometimes it's easy for us to stay in a relationship for a long time because we think things will change or because we have an idea of how things should be. And so we hold on to that. Like, we hold on to it. We're like, this is, I believe it can be different. I believe it can look like maybe so-and-so's relationship or my parents' relationship, something on TV, whatever. And so sometimes what's really hard about, and this is not even just with love, this is about anything. You can stay in a dead-end job for years because you're in love with the idea of what the job could be. So it's just this notion that sometimes when you're in a relationship and it's unhealthy, it's that you really are sold on the idea that the relationship could be better. And you really want it to be better, like really, really bad. But the issue is there's no way for you to create that dynamic by yourself. Like, if the other person is not putting in the effort and the time, it really doesn't make any sense when you look at it long term. You're basically going to be pouring out, and you're not going to get anything back in return. So what I tell a lot of the young women that I'm working with, and older women, all types of women and men, that when you're in an unhealthy relationship and you ask yourself, why do I keep taking back this person? Really at the core of it and the reality of it, like, I'm going to give a disclaimer. Like, I am the counselor who really tells people how it is. Like, you can ask anyone that I have worked with and I have not held back lies. I'll start off by saying to them, let's just call a spade a spade. Like, when I say that in a session, people are like, oh, it's about to get real. You about to say something. Because I'm just going to put it out there. Like, sometimes we need to hear things, And so what I'm going to say right now is that you take the person back because you're hoping that things will be different. You really deep down believe that things can change, and you're really hoping that it can be different. And sometimes people have shown us their character and they've shown us who they are, and we have a hard time accepting it. We really do. And so I think that unless two people can work together, if just one person is trying to keep the relationship going, it's not going to work. No matter how bad you want it and no matter how idealistic you think it could be, it's most likely not going to happen unless the other person is on the same page as you. So with that being said, for the Q&A today, when we're asking ourselves, why do I keep getting back in unhealthy relationships? It's because you think that it could work out differently. It could also be because, let me say this too, I think sometimes people get in unhealthy relationships and they stay there because they don't think they have anything else to give to anybody else. You know, it's like a comfort thing. Like they're like, well, I've been with this person for so long. They know all of my craziness. Like, why would I even bother going to someone else? But the thing is, like, if that person is mistreating you, they don't really deserve your worth. And by worth, I don't mean that you're up here and they're down here. I mean that you're valuable. Whoever is watching this right now, just know that you're valuable. And that's real talk. And you can't give away, I tell people, like, parts of our bodies are like FBI, like clearances. And when you have sex with someone, you're giving them the innermost clearance card to your body. And when, you know, but you don't always have to do that. Like, you're worth a lot. People need to work and earn your trust and your respect and your value. Like, people have to earn that. You can't just freely give that. And so I think that's another thing when it comes to people that question why they're in unhealthy relationships, because you're giving people the innermost, deepest part of you, and they have not yet exchanged that same thing. Or maybe they stopped exchanging it with you, but you're still giving it. So just in a lump sum, keeping two things that you can take away from this is if you're in a relationship or if you keep taking back a partner that's unhealthy. Hey, Kelly, she jumped in and she said it's low self-esteem. So Kelly, you're exactly right. What we're talking about is when I kind of mentioned about, like, you have value, you have to value who you are. You have to recognize that you are very important and that you hold a purpose and a place. And that's only something that you can tell yourself. The world is not going to tell you that because the world is too busy telling themselves other stuff. So you have to really believe in your worth and value, and then you have to allow people to earn things from you. You have to allow a partner to earn things from you. You can't just give it away. He has to show you that he is worth it. He has to show you that he wants it. He has to show you that he's willing to do what he can to meet your needs. And of course, it goes the same way for us. We have to also have that same type of respect for the person that we want to be with. So it's all about, like, knowing your value and your worth, and it's all about trying to make sure that when someone comes into your life, you're able to say to them, you know, I know my worth and value, and I'm not just going to hand you over my inner deepest key card so that you can just ruin it or do whatever you want with it. Like, you have to show me, you have to earn those things from me. And I think in the culture we live with today, too many of us want to give things away because we don't want people to work for it. And I'm sorry, people got to work for it. Okay, so that's a little bit about that. I wanted to share with you guys, since we're talking about the idea of relationships, I get asked a lot about relationships, and I do some couples counseling. And so over the years, I've amassed, like, these themes that I keep seeing happen when people come to me, either if they're single and they're having issues in relationships, or if they're in a relationship and they're having some issues. There's these ongoing themes that I see with individuals. And so I want to talk about that with you guys for our summer series. So we're having a whole 3 months of series just about our relationships. So in June, we're going to be talking about, it's going to be like the barriers. Well, how did let me see real quick my notes. I wrote it out. Oh, it's the barriers that prevent us from accepting love. So for some of us, we can't even get in a healthy relationship because we sabotage everything before we can get into it, or because our hearts and our guards are so far up that people cannot connect with us to even get in there. Because probably because we've been hurt a lot, you know, and that happens. Or because we don't feel really good about who we are. We don't value ourselves. So in June, we're going to be talking about 4 different barriers. Those barriers are, let me look at my notes real quick. We're going to be talking about when you're untouchable, meaning that you're guarded, people can't get past your wall. We're going to talk about when you're emotionally unavailable. So that just means that you're numb. You can't experience emotions. Like, even if you are really happy, you can't show it, you can't express it. Also, we're going to be talking about being filled with bitterness. Like, we can't you can't get in a healthy type of relationship if your heart is filled with like anger that you're holding onto and hurt that you're holding onto. And lastly, one of my favorite topics, we're going to talk about forgiveness, because if you're holding on to unforgiveness, then that's just one of the biggest issues I think with a lot of women who want to have good and healthy relationships, but they can't because they stay, you know, in this unforgiveness, in this, you know, this person owes me and I can't move past this until I get what's owed. And so we're going to break all that down and talk about that in the month of June. In July, once we get all that stuff out, we're going to talk about how you can start to maintain a healthy relationship. So what are the things that you need to do? Some of the things that I want to talk about in July are how we communicate our needs, how we deal with conflict skills, conflict resolution skills, how we deal with like acceptance. Like sometimes you get in a relationship. I remember like a year or two ago, I just decided I was accepting my husband. I was like, you know what, this is how you are. And I just took my hands off. I was like, this is it. Like, but it really took me a long time to get to that place. And I'm glad I did that, because now I love him and I'm like, I can freely love him for who he is and not who I want him to be or the things that I want to change about him. And I think having acceptance in relationships is so important. And that's just not in a relationship with like a partner, but also when it comes to us talking about a relationship with our family. Sometimes you just have to accept things as is. You just have to be like, this is what it is, and just be okay with that sometimes. It's us not accepting things that becomes an issue. And lastly, I want to talk about in July, how to be interdependent. So that means that a big thing with unhealthy relationships for a lot of women that I see are they're codependent, meaning they need someone to take care of. They need someone to need them. And that could be in children, that could be at work, that could be in a romantic relationship. But we want to try to bridge that gap, and we want to help create that you need people, but that you're also like independent too, but you're not too independent that you push people away. So interdependent is a skill that we want to talk about in July. So I know I just said a whole lot. So I know that was, if you're watching that and you're like, oh my God, so much stuff, Naya. I know it was a lot, but I talk a lot and that happens. So if you have any questions about the series, make sure you jot them down. If there's things that you really want to know that I didn't mention, please make sure you drop it down or send me a message. And that is all I have for today. So I hope the Q&A was helpful. I'm glad we got an extra week that I could just slide that in there. If that message was for you or you have it for someone else, make sure you send it to them in a private message. Like, don't post it on their wall unless you know they're cool with it. But all right, you guys, enjoy your Thursday, and I will see you guys on the flip side. Bye.